It can be hard not to judge a historic book by its cover, especially when they can be so beautiful. But a book's binding is much more than just what's on the outside. Hello and welcome to a new episode of Bite-Sized Book History. I'm your host, Allie Alvis, who you may know better as Book Historia. I'm a book historian and curator of special collections at the Winterthur Library, part of the Winterthur Museum, Garden and Library, just outside Wilmington, Delaware. You may have noticed that a few things have changed since I last posted an episode of Bite-Sized Book History, not limited to my job title. But the structure of this series is the same. These are 7 to 10 minute long videos on various bibliographic topics, aimed at introducing more people to the wonderful world of book history and material culture. So we're kicking this season off with one of my favorite topics, bookbinding. Specifically hand-bound books, most often made with animal hide coverings, from your classic cow leather to more unusual options. But a book's binding isn't just what's on the outside. The binding is the very backbone of the book as we know it. Codex is the proper name for the format of that roughly rectangular thing you think of when I say book. The word codex comes from the Latin caudex, meaning trunk of a tree. This is in reference to the predecessor of the codex, the diptych wax tablet, which featured wooden pages filled with wax that you could write on with a hard stylus. The basic definition of a codex is a stack of pages sewn together, usually sandwiched between two covers. It's this combination of sewing and covers that make up a book's binding. But there are many ways to bind and cover a book. The earliest extant bindings adorn the Egyptian Nag Hammadi codices, Gnostic texts dating from the 3rd or 4th century. Many of these codices consist of a single folded gathering of papyrus sheets, sewn through the fold directly onto a limp sheepskin leather cover. But papyrus was not particularly suited to being book pages. It was fairly brittle, especially when folded, which made for a not especially durable codex. The earliest surviving Western binding is that of the St. Cuthbert Gospel, created in the north of England in the 8th century. This is a much chunkier affair, with multiple folded gatherings of parchment stacked up and sewn together. It features thin wooden boards covered in goat skin, with a lovely raised knot pattern for decoration. I won't get into the finer points of different historical sewing structures in this video, but knowing the basics helps us to understand why books look the way they do on the outside. In this in-process photo of Erica L. Winberry's model of the St. Cuthbert Gospel, you can see how the stacks of folded pages are kind of chained together with thread. Medieval bookbinders later found that this structure was even stronger if you sewed around something, whether that be a piece of cord or tanned hide. You can see the importance of that extra support in this Yale traveling scriptorium model of a medieval book. Not only do they provide strength to the sewing, they are ultimately laced into the wooden covers to attach them to the text block. If you want to know a whole lot more about medieval binding structures and terminology, I highly recommend the Traveling Scriptorium information booklet. It's free and super detailed. I've put the link in the description below. But the thing I want to highlight here is how bulky those supports are. They stick up, so much so that they're visible under the leather cover. Eventually, particularly in thicker books that had more rounded spines, medieval bookbinders began to highlight these supports, molding their covering around them using string. This is where those raised bands on the spines of so many books come from. As bookbinding styles and technology changed in the 19th century, the supports frequently began to be sawn into the text blocks, meaning that book spines could be completely flat. However, that didn't sit right with the aesthetic urges of bookbinders and book collectors. In the 19th and 20th centuries, false raised bands proliferated. These raised bands have nothing to do with holding the book together. They exist simply to make the book look like it has a more traditional structure. Many medieval and early modern books feature boards that are made of board, heavy wooden covers that help keep their parchment pages flat. As the art of papermaking spread across Western Europe, pasteboards became more common than wooden boards. These were made by pressing sheets of paper together into a kind of cardboard-like stiffness. But a book with exposed structure and boards looks kind of naked. What about a book's cover? The Nag Hammadi codices and the St. Cuthbert's Gospel were both bound in leather, but from two different animals, the Nag Hammadi in sheep and St. Cuthbert in goat. Cow is probably the most common leather for books to be bound in, not least of all because there is a lot of skin on a cow to work with. But people were not cultivating these animals just to become books. They were a food source first and foremost, which can be seen in the popularity of different types of book coverings in different regions of Europe. For instance, if you see a book bound in alum-tawed pigskin from the 15th to the 17th century, it was very likely bound in Germany. Germans ate more pork than their neighboring countries and used the material they had at hand. You can identify pigskin by its visible clusters of 3 pores. Pores of 3, pig it be. What's the difference between alum-tawed skin and leather? It's all about the preparation. Alum tawing is done by soaking the skin in a solution of aluminum sulfate, producing a strong and supple material that is cream or white in color. Leather, on the other hand, is tanned. Before the chemical developments of the Industrial Revolution, this tanning was done with the bark and leaves of trees, which contained chemical tannins. These tannins cause the hide to be both flexible and waterproof. You can tan almost any kind of hide. There are historic books bound in reindeer, seal, horse, and even shark skin. Another thing you often expect when looking at a hand-bound book are the little gold designs on the covers and spine. This is called tooling, and it is done by pressing heated metal tools in different shapes into the book after it has been covered. Tooling can either be done in blind, basically pressing the tools directly onto the book to leave a mark, or in gilt, by laying gold leaf onto the book and pressing the tools over it. The excess gold leaf is then brushed away, with the gold remaining only where the tools were pressed. This tooling can be unbelievably intricate, with dozens of tools combined into complex patterns. Some bookbinders can even be identified by the tools they use. That does it for this episode of Bite-Sized Book History. If you have any suggestions for future video topics, please let me know in the comments. And make sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date on my book history content. I'll see you next time, and remember, don't bite your books.